We all have seen a movie before or heard of the term skinwalker, though we do not know that much about them, due to the fact that Navajo culture don't share much about them to us outsiders, which is how they keep their culture alive. All that we mostly know is that they can shapeshift, most of the time into coyotes, but let's find out a little bit more of them on today's video. In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The term is never used for healers. Navajo witches, including skinwalkers, represent the antithesis of Navajo cultural values. While community healers and cultural workers are known as medicine men and women, or by other positive, nurturing terms in the local, indigenous language, witches are seen as evil, performing twisted ceremonies and manipulating magic in a perversion of the good works medicine people traditionally perform. In order to practice their good works, traditional healers learn about both good and evil magic. Most can handle the responsibility, but some people can become corrupt and choose to become witches. Animals associated with witchcraft usually include tricksters such as the coyote. However, it may include other creatures, usually those associated with death or bad omens. They might also possess living animals or people and walk around in their bodies. Skinwalkers may be male or female. Skinwalker stories told among Navajo children may be complete life and death struggles that end in either skinwalker or Navajo killing the other, or partial encounter stories that end in a stalemate. Encounter stories may be composed as Navajo victory stories, with the skinwalkers approaching a hogan and being scared away. Non-native interpretations of skinwalker stories typically take the form of partial encounter stories on the road, where the protagonist is temporarily vulnerable, but then escapes from the skinwalker in a way not traditionally seen in Navajo stories. Sometimes Navajo children take European folk stories and substitute skinwalkers for generic killers. So, do they exist to us outsiders? As much as we love to explore the unknown, us humans also very much fear it. Maybe a skinwalker might walk now with you and you won't even notice. Imps are often described as troublesome and mischievous more than seriously threatening or dangerous, and as lesser beings rather than more important supernatural beings. The attendants of the devil are sometimes described as imps. They are usually described as lively and having small stature. Originating from Germanic faith and stories, the imp is a small lesser demon. Unlike the Christian folklore, demons in Germanic legends were not necessarily always evil. Imps are often mischievous rather than evil or harmful, and in some religions they are attendants of the gods. Imps are often shown as small in stature and not very attractive. Their behavior is described as being wild and uncontrollable, much the same as fairies, and in some cultures they are considered the same beings, both sharing the same sense of free spirit and enjoyment of all things fun. It was later in history that people began to associate fairies as being good and imps as being malicious and evil. However, both creatures were fond of pranks and misleading people. Most of the time these pranks were harmless fun, but some could be upsetting and harmful, such as the switching babies or leading travelers astray in places which they were not familiar. Although imps are often thought of as being immortal, they can be damaged or harmed by certain weapons and enchantments, or be kept out of people's homes by wards. Imps are also portrayed as lonely little creatures in search of human attention, using jokes and pranks to attract human friendship. This often backfired when people became annoyed with the imp's endeavors, usually driving it away. Even if the imp was successful in getting the friendship it sought, it still often played pranks on its friend either out of boredom or simply because this was the nature of the imp. This trait led to using the word impish for someone who loves pranks and practical jokes. Eventually, it came to be believed that imps were the familiar spirit servants of witches and warlocks, where the little demons served as spies and informants. During the time of the witch hunts, supernatural creatures such as imps were sought out as proof of witchcraft, though often the so-called imp was merely a black cat, lizard, toad or some other form of uncommon pet. A small fun fact: the imp is also depicted on the emblem of the local football team Lincoln City FC. They are also nicknamed the Imps. Imps can be found in art and architecture throughout the world, most of the time carefully and painstakingly hidden and only being found by the most interested and observant of people. We all know the infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, thanks to social media and TV shows. But how did he die? Today we will be answering that on Exploration X, the man who killed Jeffrey Dahmer. Christopher Scarver, who fatally beat the serial killer and another inmate in 1994, said he grew to despise Dahmer because he would fashion severed limbs out of prison food to taunt the other inmates. Serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was done in by his uncontrollable lust for human flesh. Even in prison there was no sign of remorse from Dahmer. The serial killer killed 17 men and boys from 1978 to 1991. It is said that he used to taunt other prisoners. He would fashion severed limbs out of prison food. Drink ketchup like it is blood and leave it where people will be. No one really knows the exact reason why Dahmer murdered all those people. Some say it is the roadkill him and his father used to dissect, while others think the divorce of his parents was very hard on him. Scarver always avoided him as far as possible as he didn't want anything to do with Dahmer. Scarver, who arrived at Wisconsin's Columbia Correctional Institution around the same time as Dahmer in 1992, knew right away to keep a safe distance from the serial killer. Like a lone wolf, Scarver watched Dahmer from afar on the prison yard, but never approached him, because he did not want to become a target of his sickening humor. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer, Scarver and a third inmate, Jesse Anderson, was sent to clean the bathrooms of the prison while the guards left them unattended. This is where it all went down. Scarver, then a 25-year-old convicted murderer, had just retrieved his mop and was filling a bucket with water when someone poked him in the back. Not sure who it was, Scarver followed Dahmer to the locker room area where he cornered Dahmer and wanted him to confess for the murders he did, which in return he confessed and quickly aiming for the door, wanted out, but Scarver beat him to death. While expecting guards to show up and throw him in isolation, this never happened. It is believed that the guards wanted Dahmer dead and Scarver was the perfect candidate for this job, as they knew he hated Dahmer for what he has done. Scarver initially pleaded insanity to the murders but later changed it to no contest, in exchange for a transfer to a federal penitentiary. He was sentenced to 2 life terms on top of the life sentence he was already serving. What if we could make the sun here on Earth? Well, today we will find out here on Exploration X. China's experimental advanced superconducting tokamak East, also known as the Chinese artificial sun, has operated since 2006. In a new world record, China's artificial sun project has sustained a nuclear fusion reaction for more than 17 minutes. Coal and natural gas are the primary energy sources currently used around the world, but these materials come in limited supply. Nuclear fusion could be the cleanest energy source available because it replicates the sun's physics by merging atomic nuclear to generate large amounts of energy into electricity. The process requires no fossil fuels, leaves behind no radioactive waste, and is a safer alternative to fission nuclear power. In the latest experiment, superheated plasma reached 126 million degrees Fahrenheit. That's roughly 5 times hotter than the Sun, which radiates a scorching 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface and about 27 million degrees Fahrenheit at its core. Keeping plasma contained at such intense temperatures without leakage, however, has proven to be extremely challenging. Scientists have been working to harness energy from nuclear fusion for over 70 years. Furthermore, an experimental tokamak reactor that produces more energy than it uses has never been created. 35 countries across the globe are working to create an even bigger sun. It should be up and running in the year 2025. It will be the largest nuclear reactor in the world. There is of course also dangers involved, like a lot of radiation and an artificial sun 5 times hotter than our own sun. The chances of getting scorched are definitely there, so in theory we have already created our own sun. Although it is not completely up and running yet, let's just hope we don't need to brace ourselves for a lot of dry and hot seasons in the future. You see a guy at the casino winning the jackpot, another guy gets the lottery numbers right, but you notice they both have something strange with them that looks like a rabbit's foot. And yes, you are right, it is a rabbit foot. It is believed that the foot of a rabbit can bring you good luck, but let's check how this came to be a lucky charm. In some cultures, the foot of a rabbit is carried as an amulet believed to bring good luck. This belief is held by individuals in a great number of places around the world, including Europe, China, Africa, and North and South America. In variations of this superstition, the donor rabbit must possess certain attributes, such as having been killed in a particular place, using a particular method, or by a person possessing particular attributes. President Theodore Roosevelt wrote in his autobiography that he had been given a gold-mounted rabbit's foot by John L. Sullivan, as well as a penholder made by Bob Fitzsimmons out of a horseshoe. A 1905 anecdote also tells that Booker T. Washington and Baron Ladislaus Hengelmüller, the ambassador from Austria, got their overcoats confused when they were both in the White House to speak with President Roosevelt. The ambassador noticed that the coat he had taken was not his when he went to the pockets searching for his gloves, and instead found the left hind foot of a graveyard rabbit, killed in the dark of the moon. Other newspaper stories reported the incident, but omitted the detail about the rabbit's foot. The rabbit's foot could be connected to a European good luck charm called the Hand of Glory. The Hand of Glory was a hand cut from a hanged man. In medieval Europe, authorities sometimes left hanged men's bodies out in public to warn others against committing crimes, but oftentimes, people would go and cut off one of the hands, usually the left one, and pickle it. There's a lot of superstitions, customs and beliefs that we sort of take for granted. But in the end, we as humans are very much attracted to the unknown. If you are enjoying this marathon so far, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell for any updates and comment down below what you would like to see next on Exploration X. At some point in our life, we all wanted to be a ninja, the fearsome warrior that can basically do anything, climb on anything and assassinate a target in secrecy without getting caught at all. But who was the first ninja? And how did this came into existence? Well, we first have to look at the samurai era. You see, the samurai lived by a code to protect their people, where the ninjas were allowed to assassinate. This is not something a samurai warrior was allowed to do. The Japanese legend of Prince Yamato is often considered the first ninja story, although Yamato did not adopt the black costume or stealthy tactics so often associated with ninjas. Instead he used deception, dressing as a woman to attract his targets. His history is uncertain, but based on the chronicles his life can be calculated. He was born around 72 A.D. and died around 114. Prince Takeru slew his elder brother Prince Aosu. His father, the Emperor Keiko, feared his brutal temperament. To keep him at a distance, the father sent him to Izumo Province, today the eastern part of Shimane Prefecture, and then the land of Kumaso, today Kumamoto Prefecture. However, Takeru succeeded in defeating his enemies. Keiko sent Yamato Takeru to the eastern land whose people disobeyed the imperial court. Yamato Takeru met his aunt Princess Yamato Hime, the highest priestess of Amaterasu at Ai's Grand Shrine, in Ai's province, and grieved, "My father wishes I would die." Princess Yamato Hime no Mikoto showed him compassion and lent him a holy sword named Aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi Kusanagi no Tsurugi, which Susanoo, the brother god of Amaterasu, found in the body of the eight-headed great serpent, Yamata no Orochi. Yamato Takeru went to the eastern land. He lost his wife Oto Tachibana Hime during a storm when she sacrificed herself to soothe the anger of the sea god. He defeated many enemies in the eastern land, and legend has it that he and a local old man composed the first Sadoka in Kai province with Mount Tsukuba, now in Ibaraki Prefecture, as its theme. On his return he blasphemed a local god of Mount Ibuki, which sits on the border of Omi Province and Mino Province. The god cursed him with disease and he fell ill. According to traditional sources, Yamato Takeru died in the 43rd year of Emperor Keiko's reign. The possessions of the dead prince were gathered together along with the sword Kusanagi. And his widow venerated his memory in a shrine at her home. Some time later, these relics, including the sacred sword, were moved to the current location of Atsuta Shrine. Anthropologist C. Scott Littleton has described the Yamato Takeru legend as Arthurian, due to some structural similarities with the King Arthur legend. Common points include the use of two magic swords, of which the first validates the authority of the hero, the leadership role of a war band, the death to an enemy after giving up the sword to a female figure, a transportation to the afterworld, and others. Littleton proposed that both legends descend from a common Northeast Iranian ancestor. The well-known movie by J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, speaks about a cursed ring that plays in Middle-earth. Though, in our universe such a cursed ring actually exists, today we will be talking about the cursed ring here on Exploration X. The Vine Ring or the Ring of Silvianus is a gold ring, dating probably from the 4th century AD, discovered in a ploughed field near Silchester, in Hampshire, England, in 1785. Originally the property of a British Roman called Silvianus, it was apparently stolen by a person named Senetianus, upon whom Silvianus called down a curse. The Vine Ring is a Roman gold ring of around the 4th century. After its discovery in the 18th century, the ring became the property of the Shute family, whose country house was the Vine, also in Hampshire, now a National Trust property. The ring went on display there in April 2013. In 1929, during excavations of the site of the Roman Temple of Nodens at Lydney Park, the archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler discovered details of the curse. As Wheeler consulted with J.R.R. Tolkien on the name of the god invoked in the curse, the ring and curse may have inspired the One Ring in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The Ring of Silvianus was discovered in 1785 in the field of a farm near Silchester, a town of Roman origins, and the site of many archaeological discoveries. It is unknown how the ring came to be located at the Vine, but it is presumed that the farmer who found the ring sold it to the family, who were known to have an interest in history and antiquities. In 1888, the owner of the property, Challoner Chute, wrote about the ring in a history of the house. In the early 19th century, a lead plaque of a type known as a curse tablet, or defixio, was discovered at the site of a Roman temple dedicated to the god Nodens at Lydney Park, Gloucestershire, 80 miles (130 kilometers) from the Vine. The plaque was inscribed with a curse. Devo NodentISILVIANVSANILVMPERDEDITDEMEDIAMPARTMEDINTI interqvibvs nomen SENICIANITETMITTASSANITETEMDONECPERVSQVETEMPLVM dentis, which in English translates to "for the god Nodens." Silvianus has lost a ring and has donated one-half its worth to Nodens. Among those named Senicianus permit no good health until it is returned to the temple of Nodens. In 1929, the archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler was excavating at the Lydney site and made a connection between the ring bearing the name of Senicianus and the curse stone bearing the same name. Wheeler called upon J.R.R. Tolkien, as professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford University, to investigate the etymology of the name, Nodens, referred to in the curse. Until recently, the ring of Silvianus remained in the library at the Vine and was little known, but was placed on display for the first time in April 2013, in its own exhibition, along with a copy of the inscription on the curse tablet. It is hypothesized that Wheeler, in his discussion with Tolkien on the name Nodens on the curse tablet, would also have discussed the ring at the Vine, with which he was familiar, though there is no proof of this. It is thought that other aspects of the archaeology of the Lydney area, including an Iron Age Roman fort, may have influenced Tolkien's writings. You walk in a dark room that is all quiet and eerie. The only light is that of the moon, which is also a bit faint. Suddenly you catch something in the corner of your eye. It looks like a lady that is all dressed in white, but it moves so fast that it was hard to tell, was it really a lady in white? A white lady, or woman in white, is a type of female ghost. She has long straight hair, typically dressed in a white dress or similar garment, reportedly seen in rural areas and associated with local legends of tragedy. White lady legends are found in many countries around the world. Common to many of these legends is an accidental death, murder, or suicide, and the theme of loss, betrayed by a husband or fiancé, and unrequited love. In popular medieval legend, a white lady is fabled to appear by day as well as by night in a house in which a family member is soon to die. They also appear within photos just before or after death. According to studies, these spirits were regarded as the ghosts of deceased ancestors. In Fremont, California, there are two instances of the White Lady legend. One known as the White Witch and the other simply known as the Prom Dress Girl. Both legends have ghost sightings in the Niles Canyon area. The White Witch story is about a woman named Lowry. She was one of the first people in the area killed in an horse carriage accident in the early 20th century. People claim to have seen her in a cemetery in the area with strange lights. Local legend says you can see her walking the ridge between the Niles Hollywood-style sign and the canyon. The prom dress girl story is about a high school girl who gets in a car accident on February 26 somewhere around in the late 20th century. Sightings of her claim she wears a white prom dress and tries to hitch a ride from passing by vehicles on the Route 84 highway between Fremont, California and Sunol, California. 71. In Dallas, Texas at White Rock Lake Park, it is reported that the ghost of a 20-year-old looking girl, known as the Lady of White Rock Lake, described as wearing a water-soaked 1930s evening dress, who usually appears at night along the roadside of East Lother Drive. Witnesses claim the phantom asks to be taken to her home on Gaston Avenue in Dallas before disappearing in the car during the ride and leaving behind a waterlogged car seat. Legend claims the woman to be a drowning victim from a boating accident in the 1930s. Reports of the ghostly encounters were published in Dallas-area newspapers in the 1960s. The Lady in White, or the White Lady of Avenel, is the most commonly reported apparition at Avenel, Bedford, Virginia. The apparition is thought to be Mary Frances, Fran, Burwell, of the Burwell family of Virginia. The legend has it that she stayed on the front porch waiting for her husband to come home from the Civil War, but he never did, so the question still remains, is the Lady in White one apparition, or is she many? We are all familiar with the one man who kept World War going for quite some time, and yet failed in the end, a celebrity for all the wrong reasons. And although already dead is still a famous person, yes, Adolf Hitler, as you guessed by now, but in this video we won't be talking about how or why he wanted a war, but rather some facts as to what made him a human being, a megalomaniac supreme. Hitler was so obsessed with his image that he had photographer Heinrich Hoffmann take photos of him making speeches. Fortunately for us, despite being told to destroy the photos afterwards, Hoffmann did not and included them in his memoir instead. Hitler was out of control in general, but biographer Volker Ulrich recently uncovered that the Führer actually spent thousands on opulence, cars, champagne, clothes, etc., while pretending to be a man of the people. What didn't he spend money on? Income tax. I guess if you have money that is not yours, why not waste it in the worst possible ways? Hitler's preferred mustache style was actually of the handlebar variety. Unfortunately for him, during World War I service he was ordered to scale it back so it would fit underneath gas masks, which didn't work. He was gassed in 1918 and temporarily blinded. While Disney represents kids' films and family to us, to the dictator, it represented the advance of technology since Snow White boasted some pretty impressive animation circa its 1937 release. Rumor has it he also felt strongly for King Kong because of its special effects, and watched both that and war films repeatedly. According to Dr. Jan Bondison, Hitler and his henchmen rounded up educated dogs with whom they communicated through tapping paws, barking, and wagging their tails, and got even one to bark, Mein Führer. These dogs were supposed to help win the war, which makes a bit of sense considering Hitler was heavily attached to his dogs, Blondie and Bella. The former, he killed before killing himself. When Hitler was about 4 years old, a priest walking home from church found the little boy almost drowning in a nearby lake, and the priest did whatever good human would have done. He pulled Hitler out of the lake, saving the 4-year-old boy. Hitler was a very paranoid man. I guess that is expected when you want all the power in the world for yourself. He was also a vegetarian, though because of paranoia, he hired his own food tasters. They used to wine and dine on the best and most expensive food you can imagine, while the rest of the people were dying of hunger and starvation. After an attempted assassination, Hitler imprisoned his food tasters who had to suffer through the ordeal. No one knows really what drove Hitler to do what he did, but he did definitely leave a mark and an ugly scar in history. Known for warfare, but celebrated for productive peace. Led by humble steppe dwellers, but successful due to a mastery of the era's most advanced technology. The Mongol Empire embodied all of those tensions, turning them into the second largest kingdom of all time. Contact between Europeans and Mongols began around 1220, with occasional messages from the papacy and European monarchs to Mongol leaders such as the Great Khan, and subsequently to the Ilkhans in Mongol-conquered Persia. Communications tended to follow a recurring pattern. The Europeans asked the Mongols to convert to Western Christianity, while the Mongols responded with demands for submission and tribute. The Mongols had already conquered many Christian and Muslim nations in their advance across Asia, and after destroying the Nizaris of Alamet and the Muslim Abbasid and Ayyubid dynasties, for the next few generations fought the remaining Islamic power in the region, the Egyptian Mamluks. Hatham I, king of the Christian nation of Cilician Armenia, had submitted to the Mongols in 1247, and strongly encouraged other monarchs to engage in a Christian-Mongol alliance, but was only able to persuade his son-in-law, Prince Bohemond VI of the Crusader state of Antioch, who submitted in 1260. Other Christian leaders such as the Crusaders of Acre were more mistrustful of the Mongols, perceiving them as the most significant threat in the region. The barons of Acre therefore engaged in an unusual passive alliance with the Muslim Mamluks, allowing Egyptian forces to advance unopposed through Crusader territory to engage and defeat the Mongols at the pivotal Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260. European attitudes began to change in the mid-1260s, from perceiving the Mongols as enemies to be feared, to potential allies against the Muslims. The Mongols sought to capitalize on this, promising a reconquered Jerusalem to the Europeans in return for cooperation. Attempts to cement an alliance continued through negotiations with many leaders of the Mongol Ilkhanate in Persia, from its founder Hulagu through his descendants Abaka, Arghun, Ghazan, and Oljetu, but without success. The Mongols invaded Syria several times between 1281 and 1312, sometimes in attempts at joint operations with the Franks, but the considerable logistical difficulties involved meant that forces would arrive months apart, never able to coordinate activities in any effective way. The Mongol Empire eventually dissolved into civil war, and the Egyptian Mamluks successfully recaptured all of Palestine and Syria from the Crusaders. After the fall of Acre in 1291, the remaining Crusaders retreated to the island of Cyprus. They made a final attempt to establish a bridgehead at the small island of Ruad off the coast of Tortosa, again in an attempt to coordinate military action with the Mongols, but the plan failed, and the Muslims responded by besieging the island. With the fall of Ruad in 1302, the Crusaders lost their last foothold in the Holy Land. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this small adventure, please like, subscribe and hit that bell for any updates. Feel free to comment down below what you would like to see next on Exploration X.